Welcome to the Sunday Superversive live stream. I am your host, Benjamin Wheeler, and I'm here today with my co host, Anthony Marchetta, for a variety stream. We're going to talk about penguins, maybe some poetry, some Lord of the Flies, maybe some Epstein files. We'll be ranking his taste in anime, except no, we won't because he was, as he is in life, disgusting with his online habits. Uh, no, 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 no. Besides nuking our reach in the first 30 seconds of this live stream, we will be, in fact, talking about serious things like Lord of the Flies and poetry and all the things I talked about, except not the Epstein files. I am convinced, Anthony, that they're a distraction, a way to remove man from his honoring of God and instead deeper into the psychological hole. Because the revelation, for example, that Bill Gates was a slime ball should not come as a surprise to anybody, except maybe, no, including his wife.
Well, yeah, I mean, he is a slime, but I didn't really consider that to be a revelation per se.
No, it's not. Uh, the fact that everyone is cooing and awing over evil men being evil is not artistic. I have no desire to go deeper into it, except to discuss it and meme on it. What shall be done? They're not hanging them yet.
Are you asking? Because I have no answers.
No, no, I'm just fed posting.
Yes.
All right. Mm. We're also talking about the penguin today. We have enjoyed many delightful, tasty edits online and on Twitter. Uh,
Yeah. Not gonna lie to you, people. I was moved by the penguin,
me too.
and even like Werner Herzog's. But why? It's great.
Oh yeah,
It's just right.
it's 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 very moving. And it's like what's funny is some people are like, oh yeah, the white ringers. Don't you know the penguin is gonna die? Don't you know the penguin is gonna die? Uh, and then it's like you don't get it.
No, you don't
That's
get it.
you just don't get it.
You
The
fucking predators.
right? It's like there's a guy who did a video on it. Uh, we'll answer your question in a little bit, Eldritch fan. Um, there's been a few edits. There's some videos from a relatively good documentarian that he basically goes, I don't get it. And why are all these right wing chuds going gaga over it? And I just went, he doesn't get it. He doesn't get the penguin. It's the Faustian spirit. It's not about whether you're going to die or not. It's about doing something and trying something and not being stopped doing something and trying something.
Yeah. It's about, I don't know. I mean, it could be about a lot of things. There's something about not non-conformity in there, right? Like I don't know exactly how to put it, but something about the penguin hits.
It's like when man is called up to serve God, and it's very much like, hey, are you going to go to the right or to the left? In the end, you answer the call of the mountain.
Right. There's First off, there's just something very moving about the image of the lone penguin walking towards the mountain, and then just going like, we don't know exactly why. We can't talk to the penguin, right? Like, but why? Why do you go in the mountain? And it reminded me of a few things I've seen. Like somebody, I see it come up occasionally. Like there's a whole industry of people climbing Mount Everest, right? And I occasionally see people
Right.
going like, I can't believe that people spend all this money on it and they waste, and it's so risky. You're so likely to die. Like, why would you do it? And I'm like, I don't know how to explain this to you. Like, I wouldn't do it. I'm not the sort of person who would do it. But how do you not understand why?
Right.
Right? Like, it's just so obvious to me. It's so self evident why.
Yes. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
like,
sure, doing the whole like you're basically carried up half the way and then you wait in line for a selfie. Yeah, that's pretty cringe. But the idea itself is you know has something to it. Uh,
and
like
then you
it,
go like, oh, but it's even weirder because you get things like, oh, they could have done anything with this money. They could have used it to like open a soup kitchen. It's like, no, the
no,
goal's not to open a soup kitchen, right? Like,
right?
you want to climb the highest mountain in the world, and then it's the same sort of thing, but why? And then it's like, I don't understand how to answer this because most people hear this and they nod and they go, oh yeah, I right. Like, and if you don't get it, then you'll
Yep.
never get it, and you're small minded.
It's like when it comes to things like the whole actually when you were talking it's like get to climb the tallest mountain in the world and it's getting taller every day because of the corpses on it but
First off, you really want to
uh
impress me. Climb K2. It's more fun.
right, and more deadly and less adventurized and
Exactly.
stuff like that.
That yeah, like, please, I climbed Everest. Sherpas climb Everest every day. They do it as a job. It's not even a
Right,
thing
it's
with
their
them.
9 to
They
5.
they they just do it. Now K2, that's a mountain.
Right, that's killed some real
Yes.
adventurers. uh there's a my laughter at the death and destruction reminds me of an article about Homo umbrans, sort of the underclass of humanity. And my comment on it is always, if man has to choose between bread and circuses, they'll choose the circuses. It's like I don't understand. These redditors should be cheering on superior human stock dying on this mountain instead of going, "Ugh, why are they full souled? Why are they adventurous? Why are they full of the wonder of God's creation?" Ugh.
Right, exactly. There's
Hmm.
more, like, with the penguin meme, though, there's a lot to it. I'm trying to pull up some of first off,
Yes.
some of the memes are great. My favorite's, Troy, which, by the way, worth talking about as, in my opinion, a really fascinating failure of a movie. Because I don't think it's a very good movie, but I think it
Mhm.
has moments that are incredibly memorable, and the one that gets memed over and over again is one of them. You know, the penguin. They showed the child going, "The penguin is stupid. He walks to certain death," and then it's Brad Pitt saying, "And that's why no one will remember your name." Which that kind of gets
Yep.
to the point of it, right? People call him the nihilist penguin, which is ridiculous. He's not nihilist; it's the opposite. Uh,
Yeah. It's like you compare the penguin to something else that happened this week, which is Peter Dinklage recites poem for Renee Good. And it's like he's pretty bold for a and behind bar. He's behind a fence, by the way. And it's like, yeah, because somebody's gonna try and punt. Some homeless guy's gonna try and punt him if they get the chance.
Also,
You
somebody
know,
just posted an image of the penguin, said, "Who shall ascend into the mountain of the Lord, or who shall stand in its holy
oh,
place? He that hath clean flippers and a pure heart, who hath not lifted up his beak unto vanity, nor waddled deceitfully."
send it to me.
Yes,
I need it.
it's pretty great.
But I consider there's a connection between Peter Dinklage and the penguin. The first being, of course, the size.
Yes, naturally.
And but they're so different from each other since the penguin has a larger heart.
Yes. Frankly, he has a larger heart than most people, but that's why, like, this person said, everybody posting the penguin and saying, literally me, like, you would ever do that. And it's like, no, no, you misunderstand. I am not the penguin. I admire the penguin.
Right. I wish I was the
Yes.
penguin.
The penguin shames me with his courage.
Shamed by the penguin.
Yes. There's just something to it, but why? It's very moving because it's like, why would I think what's getting to people is that you see the penguin. It's true that there's anthropomorphization going on, but like,
Yes.
this is a natural human impulse, and it's not like we're actually doing anything to the penguin, so who cares, right? But Uh, I think the anthropomorphization is natural and understanding it is important. Where you go like, okay, but why is supposed to be like, why do we do anything, right? Like, why do we want to do
Right.
great things? It's the same argument I've had. Like, first off, I'm not up on my Joe Rogan conspiracy theories. I still believe we landed on the moon. Um,
I do too,
Nothing's
actually.
convinced me yet. I haven't
We
read
had
the
the
full
rocketry
arguments yet.
for it.
Maybe I'll be super convinced by some, schizophrenics ramblings at some point, but I haven't yet.
I wish I was schizophrenic enough for ramblings.
I know it would make writing a lot easier.
I'd be so happy. I'd be a happier
But
man.
anyway, the point being, this was a very important addendum to the discussion. The
Hmm.
point being, like, I've heard similar stuff of people who are like, what was the point of going on the moon? As if it's not like, assuming that it did happen, the single greatest achievement by mankind in all of human history. Like,
Right.
it's the same sort of thing where you go like, what's the point? Like, meanwhile, everybody knows the point. Everybody understands the point of why we landed on the moon. Incredible at it. Uh, by the way, that image.
Thank you.
Anyway, like everybody understands because it was a huge thing at the time. Nobody need to be justified. Well, why would you land the moon? That was literally fucking Kennedy's point, even, right? Why are we doing
Right.
it? Because we can. Now, again, small-minded people like the dude from XKCD, for example, Randall Munroe, he made this point. Kenny's speech can be used to justify anything. To be honest with you, he's right. Like, but that's also kind of the point, right?
Yeah.
It can be used to justify anything. So he is using it to justify doing the single most ambitious thing that humanity has ever done. Right? Like that's it. Why did we do it? Because we can. Because we wanted to prove that humans aren't limited to the earth. If we want to leave, we can leave. We have the ability. We have the technology. We have as we have been putting it,
Yep.
the Faustian spirit, right? Um, to go boldly where
Yep.
no man has gone before.
Yep.
And this, sorry, go
It's
ahead.
yeah. Well, it's and it's despite even our own people conspiring against us, because believe you me, before the launching of it, there were a ton of uh some of them obese African American protesters going, this could have been used to feed the hungry. And it's like a small child and then like her obese mammy, and it's like, absolutely not. uh First off, Christ says the poor you'll have with us always. And secondly, uh just take half of what you're eating and give it to the kid, okay? All
There's
right.
a ton, yeah. There's all sorts of things. Like, there's a famous story that might be apocryphal, but has the ring of truth to it. Archbishop Fulton Sheen, who was a big radio personality, he's going to be beatified actually relatively soon. Um, anyway, there is a story that he managed to find fraud in a parish when he was, had priests reporting to him, and someone said like, hey, and someone objected to the building of like a cathedral or something because they said like, can't that money be used to feed the poor? So he said, hey, look into that guy's finances, and they found fraud, and they asked him, how did you know? And he said, because he used the exact same argument Judas did. And yeah,
Nice.
it's great. I love it. It's an excellent point. And I agree with him. It's the same thing with like, why do we spend all of this money to go to the moon? Because we're not machines whose job is to optimize the highest standard of living for as many people as possible. Like that the goal of human life is not to lift everyone out of poverty in as efficient a way as possible. Right? That's never been the goal of the human life. It's never been the goal of human experience. The reason we went to the moon is because we're men, and we don't just do things because we want to survive, right? We don't just do things because we want to attain comfort.
Right.
We do things because they are great things.
Yep.
And going to the moon is a great thing. Just like when you see the penguin, what you're seeing is the penguin leaves the rest of the penguins behind. He walks towards the mountains. But why?
Right.
Well, because going there, in truth, we don't know why. As the Redditors don't
Right.
know why either. Of course, they pretend they do. They go, he's going to kill himself. You have no fucking clue, right? He's a penguin, what
Right.
he's thinking. However, what you see in the penguin, the Rorschach test of the penguin is you see the mountain, and going to the mountain is a great thing, right? It's an accomplishment, it's an
Yes.
achievement, but it's an achievement that you can only get by striking off on your own, by doing something different than the rest of
Hmm.
the pack, literally, right? You need
Right.
to take the risk, and this is something that is very moving. It's moving for a lot of people. It was moving towards me. I find the picture genuinely moving to look at. The tininess of the penguin juxtaposed with the massiveness of the mountain, and the penguin entirely on its own. Even seeing the video and seeing the moment where
Hmm.
the penguin pauses and looks back before it continues to go, right, as if it's making
Right.
this concrete choice, like comfort is over here, greatness is over here. What do I choose? I
Yep.
choose greatness, even if I have to go it alone. That's a message that I think that is very, it's good for society, you know. It's why one of my favorite modern saints is we've talked about him in the past after he got beatified a few months ago. Uh Saint Pierre Giorgio Frassati. And
Yes.
he was a mountain climber, and his saying was verso l'alto, to the heights, right? And that's on his prayer cards, on everything. And when you go onto his website, it's the prayer for the courage to be great. Piero Giorgio Frassati was a man who did not believe in half measures, and he died as a man who did not. He died living a very short life, but the poor of Turin came out for his funeral. He was involved in many different organizations. He was involved, in also he served the poor. He was a mountaineer, right? Like, we need
Hmm.
these people who admire us, that we can be great. And that doesn't necessarily mean being rich. It doesn't necessarily mean being great in the eyes of man, which is another thing that the penguin, right? Like, the penguin's not great in the eyes of the other penguins. They ignore him. The
Yep.
penguin is great, but
You.
we see the mountain and we see, wow, to go to the mountain, that would be a great thing if you made it to the top of the mountain.
It would be an amazing view to bleed out in.
Exactly.
Uh, but no, with the penguin in the mountain and everything else like that, it's as much a calling, a ministry, as it is a physical um, event. Like the spiritual nature of it is almost more important than the actual physical hardship. You recognize the penguin because the penguin went off in the crowd, but also when it comes to things like um, how you yourself are against the people. I've adopted the Rick and Morty line. You booze me nothing. I've seen what makes you cheer, as a kind of thing for to remind myself. My pastor has remind your emotions of what's true. It's like the things that the crowd cheers for. Well, the crowd cheers for Barabbas. That's the biblical version of all this stuff. The Rick and Morty line in reality is a biblical truth. Um, as we all know, in the uh, first episode of the second season, during all the time shenanigans, Rick gets on his knees and begs God for help. It's one of those things where whatever atheists try to do, even when they're trying to be funny, fundamentally the mountain exists, and there are people who go towards the mountain. Uh, and inshallah, Rick will soon give himself to the light of Allah. I'm sure. I'm sure. Uh, no, that's ridiculous nonsense. But in the real world, the people often do that. Many times, unless you're a child or have the faith of a child, what brings people to Christ is not the heights and the mountaintop, the fake mountain that they build for themselves. It's in fact the depths of despair. that bring them to Christ, the realization that they're a sinner in the hands of an angry God, or even a God that loves them, and they can't bear it. The purity is too great for them. They see all the stuff that they have, the hangers on, the lickspittles, the wealth, the luxury in the cars, and it doesn't satisfy them anymore. Whenever God calls them, the things of this world don't satisfy. I know men, rich men, great men, even who are of the second or third order of greatness, where you don't quite know who they are, but if they disappeared, you'd notice a steep increase in the price of oil or steel or chemicals or something like that. And many of them, have no family life, um, have no deeper thing to them. My one of my close relatives has lived his whole life and gained more money than I ever will, and yet, when he prays, it is worse than a child's prayer. It's insincere. It's basically "Daddy God, please." Uh, you know, and it's not like I'm some super prayer or anything like that, but the change in quality is noticeable. The poverty of his soul, whatever his wealth, is entirely on display. Um, no matter what love I can show him, which isn't much because he doesn't hang out with me. I wonder why. Not that I've ever told him something like that. Um, but it's a person who's climbed a mountain, but in reality the mountain has remained unclimbed. It's the penguin. Not that penguins have souls like a human has souls, but the penguin's soul now desires something that's beyond him. In the same way that an executive might give up his wealth to serve the Lord, or turn his wealth to serve the Lord, depending on his ability to handle it. Um, it's uh it is the mountain. I don't want to be like the mountain is a metaphor. Well, the mountain is kind of a metaphor. The penguin is a metaphor. The point of the penguin and the metaphor and all this other stuff like that in spirit is something more, is something higher. Um is I wish I could be more specific, but it's something that you have to feel. Like the men in the NASA moon launch teams, um, they were doing their job, sure, but they also had the desire to do it beyond what a job is for desire. Like people going to a 9 to 5 to fill out TPS reports. You're not doing that out of desire. You're doing it for a base life and a paycheck. And while that's good, in its own way, you're not actually creating value in the same way that the NASA scientists are doing, or the men who built our highways and stuff like that, or the even things like, which are greater even than the Roman aqueduct system and the roads. It's all these things that America has had to be made by men who fundamentally believed in what I'm going to call the mountain. Many of them were Christian. Most of them, 90% plus, were Christian of some kind. 90% of them were white. 90% of them were highly educated. And the ones who weren't highly educated were indistinguishable from the average working man today. Um, the Chinese laborers were much more of a minority than people like to promote them as being. Fundamentally, white Americans made America, and it was made because it's the mountain and because they were the penguin. They came from places that were experiencing their own growth. This plus ultra, but in the end, it petered out the second the economic incentives were gone. It wasn't as true a Faustian motto as people might think. For the simple reason is that, again, once the money wasn't there, they just kind of stopped and they kind of rotted. Whatever Napoleon did to the old system of European rulers, whatever the revolutionaries did, fundamentally the rot was already there. The fight wasn't necessarily from the royalty, but from the guerrillas and from English money against Napoleon in the Iberian War. Um, Russia didn't even bother to really fight them. They just let the land and the winter, their natural habitat, do it for them. I firmly believe that God has blessed America, not for its blessing of Israel, as people say. No, I think there's a judgment coming for some parts of that, not the blessing itself, but for the simple, how shall we say, worship of other gods that comes with the worship of money. Um, no, I don't think God can bless those who don't worship Him. But I do believe that up until even the '70s, even the '80s, we were a nation who worshiped the Lord. That most of our people, 90 to 80%, were of some kind of Christian denomination in truth. And even the ones that weren't, if you put a gun to their head and told them to deny Christ, they would rather take the bullet. It's one of those things where I got a taste of it. Anthony just doesn't remember because he wasn't born during it. During the '90s, it just kind of fell apart and became wholly secular. And those that weren't secular became ossified. Uh, Churches that are about hospice more than they are about spreading the word. Um, People talk about the longhouse this, longhouse that, but it's true. It's a true thing. um it's like the penguin trying to go to the mountain, but the other penguins are the scientists stopping him. What stops you from improving yourself? Both Anthony and I have changed our trajectories in life, and I'm finding it quite difficult. It's actually very hard to go to the mountain. I've had to give up comforts and other things, and been aggressive with myself in ways that I wasn't before. Climbing the mountain is actually quite difficult.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good way to put it. None of it's easy. It's not supposed to be easy. If it were easy, it wouldn't be worth doing. If you think about it.
Yep.
Uh, I don't know. Anything else to add about the penguin? I'm kind of penguined out. I'm good.
Yeah, me too. I love the penguin. Uh, Werner Herzog's "But Why" will stick with us, I think, for quite some time.
Yes.
I think that if no, I won't. No,
Well,
nothing.
of course
I
not.
almost said something about Peter Dinklage being punted again. Um, but
Wow.
no, I will resist. I will resist. I'm only telling half the joke. Um, but yeah, no, like, be the penguin. Like, society is against us. Every day I hear reports about AI taking jobs, or Indians taking jobs, or they're not even real jobs. Um, and like, I applied for a job and the job disappeared halfway through my application, not even halfway through. It's some of them are even like they'll like disappear the Monday you try to apply to them. uh I did that recently too. So it's like, it's not even that you can really do anything, but if you can do it of yourself, that's better than just kind of being stuck with your misery and pain and depression and nothingness, which is really what you're fighting against. The penguin isn't a nihilist. You are. It's when Bronze Age pervert says, you think you live. You go and you have your dinner parties and your wine tastings and thoughtful conversations. You are gay. You are gay. It's a true thing. It's having the trappings of civilization, but none of the responsibilities or duties or height of purpose is gay. You cannot do this and actually be a penguin. Uh, I've lost track. Something about penguins. No. Let's see. What do we want to talk about next? This is a variety show, Anthony. I've chosen the topics. Why don't you choose a topic?
Sure, Lord of the Flies.
You got it.
Yeah, so this has been coming up in the news again, and it pops up around. It's kind of been discussed for years. Lord of the Flies, a book that
Yeah.
is mandatory to be read in schools, which is unfortunate. It's always unfortunate when books are mandated to be read because that means that they're never going to get a fair shake from anyone. I
No.
think, right? You are either going to hate it or you're going to reflexively defend it without giving it the proper look that it deserves.
Yep.
Uh, so it really doesn't matter what the book is either. I don't think this is why I actually disagree with people go like, oh, it's the books that are assigned. Like to an extent, this is true, but only to an extent. The reality is, it doesn't matter what books are assigned. The fact that you're being forced to read them is the problem.
Yes.
But whatever. I'm off topic. So, Lord of the Flies is in the news again because it was announced that the dude who made the British propaganda show Adolescence, uh, was going to be making a Lord of the Flies adaptation. So, for
Yeah.
those who don't know, Adolescence was a piece of poorly directed, poorly written propaganda by the British, where they were trying to misdirect the public into thinking that the violence problem in Britain is due to young men being radicalized by Andrew Tate. I'm not
Mhm.
even kidding. I'm pretty sure he was name dropped by he was actually name dropped in the show. Um and not because of Muslims,
Right.
right? When in reality it is entirely Muslims.
Like
Um
99%.
yeah, entirely in any sense that it would be considered a problem at all.
Yep.
Right? Like Andrew Tate radicalization, I suspect he actually has no effect on anyone, to be honest with you.
No,
Um
I think. Well, we'll talk. We'll talk. We'll talk about it. Keep going.
I don't think he's made anybody go psychopathically violent. How about that?
No.
So, point being, it was a propaganda show. I don't know how successful it actually was. I know that the media really tried to act like it was successful. They gave it a bunch of awards and things.
Hmm.
Um But was it really sexual? I'm not British. I don't know what their discussions about it are, so I have no idea.
There was no
Well,
mention in my relatives. Uh, in my
what was that?
relative, there was no mention of it in my relative circles,
Yeah, so
and
yeah,
they're
make of
liberal
that what
too.
you will.
You know.
So the creator of the show has now been asked to direct Lord of the Flies, and this on paper makes perfect sense. It's an anti-boys story about like the violence of boys, except this brought up the Lord of the Flies book discourse again, and the camp spread out very quickly. I know that John C. Wright and Al Jaji Lamplighter hate Lord of the Flies, think that's anti-human, anti-whatever, right? I know the superversive movement generally has rejected Lord of the Flies. Um, but here, my hot take on it is I like Lord of the Flies. I think it's pretty good. And I wrote a blog post. Shout out! I'm back to updating my blog on a regular basis because I'm trying to I have a book coming out in a year. So I am trying to get more of a presence. So I am trying to make sure that I am keeping online in various ways to promote myself. Uh, the mechanical dragon.wordpress.com. Shout out. Anyway, uh, I put out a post on Lord of the Flies responding to most of the stuff I've heard. So my big issue, to be summarized with the way that people talk about Lord of the Flies, is I think it is misunderstood. It's misunderstood to mean like humanity, specifically boys, are inherently evil and violent and will inevitably turn to this if they are trapped alone for any extended period of time, and then people hate that message. I think that that is an oversimplification of the message of Lord of the Flies. So I put I have this. I said so. Number one, Lord of the Flies is about the inherent evil of humanity. This is anti-human garbage. Um, this is where this isn't exactly true. It is true, but with caveats here, right? Like, so what Lord of the Flies is actually about is this specific group of secular British school children raised in the post-empire era of Britain, when the values of the empire were no longer being taught, but the land, even the control of the empire was slipping away, but the sort of cultural vestiges of the empire will still around. In other words, the empire existed, right? Or like visually existed, and the British people acted like it existed, and they have all of the trappings of the existence of the British Empire, when in reality, the thing that made it great was gone, was already gone, right?
Yes.
So, as one Twitter friend said, someone named Scholar at Arms on Twitter, he was also active in the Superversive spheres for a while, so it was nice to see him. Anyway, if Lord of the Flies is anything, it's an indictment of a secularized, post-Christian, post-Empire Britain, which still told itself it had the vitality of yore, rather than was running on corroding habit. This is, I think, exactly right. So
Yeah.
it's not about all men. It's about men. It's about young boys who are raised in this specific environment. They are raised, in other words, to be taught that they are superior to the rest of the world, but they aren't taught the thing that made them superior, because they were superior because they were Christians who were raised with British values. Well, they're no longer being raised with British values, and they're no longer, and specifically meaning Christian values, right?
Yes.
Now they're just being raised to be taught that they're better, but they're not better. They're just like everyone else, and everyone else is a and when you take away the things that make us better, what are we? Well, we're savages, right?
Yes.
Um, And then you go, oh, well, then, but wouldn't they be different because they're British? That's like, it's not just like, doesn't blood have something to do with it? Well, that's where it becomes important that Lord of the Flies is not about adults either. It is about young people, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is about people who are pre-teenage, adolescents. That's very important. So, yeah, you could say like, oh well, just because they're British and they're part of, they might have higher IQs or a different type of people. They wouldn't descend into savagery without Christianity. Well, that's what maybe when they grow up, it might not look the same way as savagery that we see out in other places. Although the whole point of the book is that they were having like a nuclear war, and this followed World War I and World War II,
Yeah.
and like many other things that happened here. So even that's a little bit of an oversimplification. But more importantly, here, when you're talking about adolescents without fully developed brains,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's not. Yes, you're going to see it turn into something. I think it's going to be a type of savagery similar to what we see in pre-developed civilizations, right?
Right.
Um, and again,
Especially without like an adult supervision, a connection to
exactly.
the past, etc.
And all of this is extremely intentional in the book.
Mm.
So the next thing is people bring up, this is the one that drives me absolutely insane, the Six Tongan schoolboys. You'll see even YouTube videos with the title like The Real Life Lore of the Flies. So I've heard this many, many times. So Jaji brought it up to me first, but I've seen it in many other times. It honestly baffles me. I don't understand why people keep bringing it up. The story of the Six Tongan schoolboys, Tonga is a Pacific island,
Mm-hmm.
is interesting. Don't get me wrong, in its own way. It's not only not the same as Lord of the Flies, it's not even all that similar to Lord of the Flies. The only thing the stories have in common is that in both Lord of the Flies and the Tongan schoolboys incident, some boys survive as castaways for a bit. But
Right.
every detail that makes the Lord of the Flies what it is is completely different. The boys are not British, has nothing to do with the British Empire. It's a Pacific island. They are thoroughly Christian. They were
Mm-hmm.
running away. They went to a Christian boarding school, I believe, or at least a Christian school, and they were like running away together. Um, they were all teenagers, so none of them were adolescents. In Lord of the Flies, the oldest we get is like adolescents, 12-year-olds, maybe 13,
Yeah.
right? Um, None of them are adolescents. They're all teenagers, 13 to 19 years old. They are all friends. All of them, they ran away together. They were friends with each other, right?
Right.
And there were only 6 of them. So, in contrast, Lord of the Flies is a story about dozens of boys who are
Like 50
British
plus.
from, yes, who are British from the post-Empire era of Britain, all
Mhm.
secular, absolutely no Christianity, of varying ages ranging from kindergarten to adolescence, no teenagers, only some of whom were friends. Right?
Right.
These 2 stories just have nothing to do with each other. Like, of course, it went differently with the Six Tongue and Schoolboys. Like, I think Golding would have expected it to go differently. I don't know why you wouldn't think it would be different.
Yep.
It's not the same situation. Like, yeah, if you have 6 teenagers who are friends with each other and have a shared Christian heritage and cultural background living together, it's liable to go a lot better than when you just throw dozens of schoolboys together with no values, you
Right.
know, and say, don't die, good luck. The
Right.
next argument is Golding was a really bad person. Did you know in his journal he admitted he tried to rape a woman? Yeah, okay. All right,
Mm.
next one. I don't care.
I lust after women in my heart every day. I'm not better.
I don't even care. Maybe I am better. Like I don't care. We're talking about Lord of the Flies. Golding could be a horrible person. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think George Bernard Shaw was a horrible person. I think My Fair Lady or Pygmalion was really good. So yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Uh
it's like the crimes of Galahad. You know,
yes.
Galahad was lying in wait for the lady. He just happened to save her from somebody else by the beneficence of God,
Yes.
essentially. Hmm.
Great book. Very
Very
interesting
good.
book. Anyway,
Yes.
but different book than we're talking about. And then this
Yes.
is the other one that people bring up. He was trying to undermine another book that taught wholesome values, which makes Lord of the Flies very evil. So this is kind of true, and I'll explain. Golding wrote the book as a response to a book called The Coral Island, which was an adventure book about 3 young male castaways published in 1857. So if the Coral Island really was this wholesome piece of entertainment, you can argue that it would be a wicked thing to try and undermine it, right? I
Mm.
haven't read the Coral Island, so I don't have an opinion on that specifically. But there's more to this for a couple reasons. I don't think this matters all that much because Lord of the Flies, even if this is what he intended it as originally, doesn't work very well as a response to the Coral Island, at least on the most obvious levels, because the Coral Island is about 3 boys who are all teenagers who all have strong Christian values.
Mm.
And it was written in 1857 when the British Empire was still very much in its heyday and taught these strong Christian values, right?
Yeah.
Lord of the
What's more,
Flies
that's
is
a
about, go ahead.
very that what's more, it was a very popular genre. Jules Verne wrote The Mysterious Island around the same time, that sort of
Yeah,
stuff.
the Robinsonade it was called.
Mm.
You're correct. It was a very popular genre.
Yeah.
Um, so Lord of the Flies is simply about a different thing entirely. If
Mhm.
Golding intended it to be a response to the Coral Island, I think he included too many differences. I don't think it worked. So, as far as I'm concerned, you can enjoy the Coral Island if you want to, because it can live alongside Lord of the Flies in peace. But there's another way to interpret this, right?
Mhm.
And this is how I think of it. Like, again, like, this is not conjecture, so I'm not going to say that, oh, Golding didn't intend this. He absolutely did intend it as a response to Coral Island. He said it himself. He was very clear about it, right?
Sure.
He did not like the Coral Island. But consider it like this: the Coral Island, written in 1857, was still being read in the Britain of Golding's time and presented as, like, this is how children would act. And Golding's like, well, that's not how children would act at all, right?
I
And that's why I
remember boarding
wrote,
school,
what was that?
and he gives something like, "I remember boarding school," or whatever.
Yeah. So, and this is why he wrote Lord of the Flies. And you go, okay, but is Golding correct? Well, I think you can make the argument that Golding is right about the time period where he was reading The Coral Island, right?
Yes.
So if he's saying that why you're reading The Coral Island as an account of how children will act in a disaster situation, and people are talking about it like this. In reality, in the Britain of 1950s, right, post
Right.
World War II, post nuclear era, um, and if you take those children and you put them in this situation, but also you make it like they have to try and build a society, and you make that, and they don't have these values and they're not in this world, this is not how these children are going to act, right?
Right.
And if that's his point, basically that the world of the Coral Island is gone and it's not coming back, right?
Yeah.
I think he's right. I think he made the point. I think he makes the point well.
Oh yeah. It.
And go
Yeah.
ahead.
Keep going. Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah, I'll finish what I'm going to say. And I'm basically summarizing my own blog post on it. Like, my real point is this, which is like, this is the big one that the Superversives are shocked by. Like, I think Golding's right. And I think Lord of the
Mhm.
Flies is more or less accurate. I actually think it's a pretty good book. So,
Yeah.
what he is presenting here is an Augustinian view of human nature, of original sin as corrupting them. He's saying that if you don't raise people, if they don't have these values, then when they are thrust into this situation, this is the sort of savagery that they're going to degenerate to. And not for nothing, I think he's correct.
Yes.
There is no redemption in the only difference with his view and Augustine's view of human nature is he has no possibility of redemption, and he shouldn't, because they weren't raised with that, right? They weren't
Yeah.
taught that. They wouldn't have that. There is no redemption without Jesus Christ. If they don't have Christian values, they're not going to be redeemed, right? Like, the other thing is people seem to remember the book wrong for various reasons, like, oh, the whole island went savage. No, that's not really true, right? Like,
Right.
what really happened is that there were two camps, and one camp said you should live like good proper British people, only he couldn't explain why, right? Just said we should do it, you know. And the
Yeah.
other camp said, and the other camp was led by a sociopath who said, I think we should just do whatever the fuck we want. And you want to know the people who most of his followers were? The kindergartners, right? Like,
Yeah.
this is a
His
big part of the
his
book.
school chums and the kindergartners.
Yeah, his school chums and the kindergartners. Why would the kindergartners follow him and not the nice one? Well, because he's telling them, hey, really young children, you could do whatever the fuck you want. I don't give a shit. Just, just pay homage to me. Ralph is going, no, we need to be good, proper people. And everyone's going, well, why would we be good, proper people? Well, because we're British. All right, well, the British started a nuclear war, and there's no authority figure here telling you what to do. So release your, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing, too, is that I hear people like Jaji and John going, like, I don't know people who would talk like that. With respect to them, I don't think they've been in a public school in a very long time.
No. Even my own school.
100%, 100%, a Jack-like figure absolutely would have arisen. I know several people who were sociopaths like Jack was in Lord of the Flies, who absolutely would have tried to do exactly what Jack did in the book.
Oh yeah.
Like, there is no chance. And there were Ralphs too. Ralph represents the other breed of popular kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he is the sort of popular child who is not a sociopath. Don't get me wrong, they do exist, but that's the thing. They existed in Lord of the Flies too. The question is, when you're offering these two competing worldviews, who's going to win? The one that says we should try and be good, civilized people who vote and use a conch to make decisions, or the one who says, how about instead you pay homage to me as emperor, and in return, you could do whatever you want?
You'll eat pig with me.
Right. You'll eat pig, which is very, very, very clearly an allegory for you can rape any woman you want. Right.
Really?
It's not subtle.
Oh.
And
well, I didn't get it.
If you read the scene, just look at the way they describe the spear going into the pig and everybody like in a kind of almost orgy of violence. Right.
I get you.
But yeah. The point being, I'm going a step further. I not only think that most people's arguments about Lord of the Flies are wrong, I think Lord of the Flies itself is pretty good and pretty accurate.
Yeah.
I think what it needs to be viewed as is a horror novel.
Ooh.
I actually don't think enough people think of it as a horror novel. It's not an adventure novel. I mean, there's honestly not even that much adventure in it if you think about it, right? It's a
No.
horror novel. It's
Yeah.
a horror novel about, people, what happens when these people with no values and no authority and nothing mooring them together are forced to come up with their own society without any underpinning, right?
Mm-hmm.
The underpinning of Christianity is gone. So then all you have are the remembrances of an empire long past. And why should we listen to them? They're destroying themselves in wars right now. And
Yep.
as time has gone on, Golding has been proven right because
Yeah.
Britain has degenerated into an absolute joke.
Yep.
It's degenerating into sort of place that arrests little girls and lets their attackers and rapists go free.
Yep. It took an immense international outcry for that guy who was attacking that one girl with the knife and the axe, who had sexually assaulted her friends, for him to be arrested. The debt, the blood debt that has to be paid is it raises its voice to heaven. The burnt churches, the murdered priests and pastors, and all them, every single one is a voice in heaven calling for judgment. Um, Maybe they're not like literally shouting for judgment, but Revelation is clear that the martyrs call out for judgment, and God hears them. Saving up that judgment for the time for it to be poured out, every ounce of it. Um, yeah, like I flip around. I don't like Lord of the Flies because I do find it ugly. But I can't really argue with it. It's like you have several boats full of Eustace Scrubs pre-redemption. Like, what are you going to do with that? I know that if my like high school party, which by the way broke the many decades tradition of having a senior trip because we were so incompetent and so against each other that we couldn't even raise money for our own banquet. Uh, just absolutely incompetent. Uh, you know, even if I had a will to dominate them, because I was involved in student government all throughout high school, uh, it just doesn't work out that way. Uh, you know, like like we had 30 something people overall within the class at its height. Uh, Two people removed because they were caught having oral sex behind the gym by our serious principal. Um, Several of them were involved with bullying of different people. We sat ourselves given the choice between the jocks on one side and the nerds on the other side with no borderlands. There weren't anybody who was either, both. You were either, a video game playing nerd or you were, with the jocks. Um, it's one of those things where like, and I don't see how that could be any different from the average American public school. I've seen how comedy writers and show writers, American Dad has the high school as a pretty prominent location. I see how these guys do it. That doesn't come from nowhere. They don't pull this stuff completely blank, fully formed like a myrmidon. No, like these things, how people refer to the world, comes from real lived experience. Um, I remember being stuck next to a couple of students who would never do anything well. You can imagine what kind of students and what race they were and all this jazz, and being stuck trying to do work while they're laughing at each other, drawing each other in caricature with their man boobs hanging down to their knees. I mean, it's like like what kind of civilization can come from that? From the gentleman who um, like one time, me and the chief jock we had a rivalry, as you imagine. I resented him and he resented me because I wouldn't, just kind of go with it. Um, and they put us together. So, yeah, sure, we had a moment of civilization. We got the work done in like 15, a classroom. And then we're like, yeah, here's an essay. Boop, 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 boop. Wow, guys, did you learn a lesson? No, we already knew all this. Yeah, we already knew all this. Like it's like one of those things where, yeah, maybe I'm doing a gamma tell with that. But it's like, yeah, sure, you put us on an island, what's going to happen? Daniel is going to be on top because he's the chief jock. The nerds, if they dissent, are going to follow along or get beaten up by the other star players on the team, because we did have top four basketball team all 4 years he was there. I'm going to give him his credit. I don't resent that. I don't hate him for it. But what's probably going to happen is that the civilization will come from his jockness, his alpha nature, not from Jack, having the pig, not from Ralph, calling for civilization. I know at that time in my development that I couldn't. I would just go along to get along. I know that most of the nerds of that class, at worst, all they had in them was a snarky remark. But even if I, pool my memory and call up, the rest of my high school class, some 120 odd people across the whole thing. Again, a Christian school. Fundamentally, I don't see how it changes if we are the seniors. Um, if we're not the seniors, if we're the freshmen, it changes up a bit because the junior class was pretty sociopathic, but they were also united, in their own way. They weren't the ones who failed to have a high school banquet and all this other stuff. No, they weren't the ones who failed to have a senior trip. Like it's like what's the material you're working with? If you're working with pathetic, disjointed, uh, unable to work together, unable to handle lacking authority, all this other stuff. Well, guess what? You get Lord of the Flies. The strongest man wins. And quite frankly, that's closer to nature than anything else. And how can you tell me that it's like, not that I'm saying that Anthony's telling me it's unbiblical or anything like that, but like if someone was like, actually, it's not biblical to have the strong man as ruler. I would ask you, what do you mean? Wasn't David the strong man? Like Solomon sure was wise, but he came to power over the corpses David left. And he killed people that David straight up said, I should have killed these guys. Don't let them go to the grave in peace. The blood and the terror is closer to the what humans used to experience than the civilization that Ralph proponents, the civilization that was the Edwardian and Victorian Empire, and the Georgian Empire and the Elizabethan Empire. Like once they, sure, the time Charles the First, had that caused that civil war, but at the same time, it wasn't as bad for the people as say Stefan and Matilda or the War of the Roses were. Sure, the Irish suffered, but that is nothing. That's fine.
When do they not?
When do they not? They're suffering right now. Um, but it's like I find it ugly because it's very realistic, because it is real to how people would be, to how like I knew my school chums and stuff like that. Um, like, yeah, sure, me and the alpha jock or whatever could work together, but that doesn't mean we didn't resent each other afterwards. Like, yeah, sure, we recognize each other as human. He also had issues of the same nature that I did. But the thing is that like there's still a matter of character and nature and maturity. Just because somebody's an alpha jock doesn't mean they're mature. It just means that they have a will to dominate other people's, that they can attract women, that they have social standing in ways that others aren't. In the same way that being a gamer or being intelligent, it doesn't mean you're more mature. It just means that you're able to process better information. Ralph being able to understand that how he should act never gave him the true why. The why would be we are creatures of God, we are servants of God. Therefore, we should act civilized rather than savages who have no God and worship the rocks and the trees and the blood. Um, but nobody can really make that argument when they're 13 years old. And if they did, they'd be pretty fucking scary. Uh, there'd be other issues we'd worry about. Um, it's like in the end, if you're all used to Scrub, you're going to act like used to Scrub.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you. I
Good. You
got
can have some
nothing.
pig. You can have some pig.
Yes. Uh, yeah, I mean, it's just interesting because Lord of the Flies comes up all the time, and my big thing is like people go like, I don't think this is how people would act because I haven't seen people act like that. Right. Well, that's because most of us aren't in the specific situation of Lord of the Flies, and that Golding is a bad person. I will not dispute that. The book might not have been written for a good reason. I don't know, maybe not, but
Well,
whether
it's
it
like,
was or not, I think that
yeah.
it works on its own merits.
And most of the people who say that kind of thing don't go to like East St. Louis or whatever the equivalent is for New Jersey. It's like they're not in the place that's criminal. Like I had a bouncer friend who told me a story about his son who went to a party and he told him not to go, but he went and blah blah blah. You know how these things go. And someone whipped out an automatic rifle and just started shooting it into the air, and everyone scatters and runs for it. And he's like, Dad, come pick me up. And he's like, yeah, that's right. You're going to learn a lesson today. You learned your lesson. Yeah, I learned my lesson. You know, uh, he told it better, but it's like, the Lord of the Flies situation is in our inner cities. It's in certain parts of it, or in places where drugs have taken over the whole thing. The Chaz, or places like Upper Michigan, where people have abandoned the young generations to drugs and alcohol and promiscuousness and everything else like that, rather than lift their pinky finger to help them. It's which is I was talking to a missionary who's up there, and it's like he went to the boomers and their churches, their hospice churches, and he said, hey, if you take these grandkids under your wing, maybe they'll avoid the heroin use that's so pervasive here, and the opioid abuse. No, we've paid our dues. Like, that's Lord of the Flies. Lord of the Flies is, situation isn't some sort of like stuck on an island. The Earth is an island. The Earth is an island in a sea of void that you can't cross. No different than the ocean in the book. How are you acting? How are these people acting? How are the people around you acting? Do you have to start researching worse and worse old folks homes for your parents who are wicked, or do you get to live in some part of paradise where you don't have to worry about people shooting up everywhere? But we still see tons of videos of people, from ring cameras, of things like, the door knocking game or whatever it's called, where bands of colored youths run up to the door and start kicking at it. Oh, we weren't going to break in, we're just kicking at the door like we were going to break in. And then they get shot. Like, how is that not Lord of the Flies?
Yeah, the other thing too is like, have I don't know, any of these people talking this way, like, how long has it been since you've actually seen what the public schools are like?
Right.
Um, it's bad.
Yep.
Worse than you think. This is, by the way, reminds me of like another tweet somebody brought up. I've been trying to find it on here, where somebody posted a thing bragging about like, oh, this is our reading list at a classical school,
Yeah.
right? And it was a decent reading list. It had like the Odyssey. It also had some modern books. And then they said post the most bog standard high school reading list. And it's like, yeah, we're superior to you guys. And I saw that and I reposted, like, this guy has no idea how bad the public schools are, does he? Yeah, here it is. Found it.
Mm.
So the reading list includes like the Odyssey, Animal Farm, Antigone, Great Expectations, Elie Wiesel, ew. But now Beowulf. You know, the
I hate Eli Wiesel.
I mean, most people, yeah, it's another story.
It's
Uh,
spiritually true. Fuck off.
yep, Caesar, you know, Fahrenheit 450, right? Like all these things, and then they also have some minor stuff. The Alchemist. Uh,
Hmm.
there was something
Which
else,
I've
but
read, and I'm of the, like, the more I think about that one. So I was given like a C-suite like reading list, and the more I think about The Alchemist, the more I think it's about surrendering your personal responsibility for the bad things that you could possibly do. But that's for another time.
it's possible. I don't know. I don't know anything. I didn't read it. A Separate Piece, which is one of the worst books ever written, by the way. Um, Awful. Now there you go. There's a book. There's a hill I'll die on. Now that is an awful book.
Never read it.
Uh,
I'm fine.
you didn't hate it?
Never read it.
Oh, yeah, good. Don't. It's gay as fuck, and openly so. Like it's about a friendship with two young boys, and then he dies suddenly and tragically, and then like there was a very amusing thing where everybody's like, so the main character, he's like fucking gay, right? And of course, we're in a Catholic school, and our teacher like would get annoyed and be like, "No, he's not gay." And then we'd look it up, and the author's like, "Yeah, no, they're totally gay." And then we're like, "But teacher, the author said they're gay. Like they're clearly
Right.
gay." And then she'd be like, "Shut the fuck up." Obviously, she wouldn't say it like that, and I'm being a little mean to her, but
So I always look up things on TV tropes, and it goes. The second one is accidental murder. Maybe it's thought that Gene only wanted to cripple Finney by causing him to fall from the tree, but nobody can be sure. If this assumption is correct, then the example applies. Gene does successfully cripple Finney, but doesn't expect Finney to later die from an unsuccessful surgery on a broken leg.
yeah, it's about right.
Super Suicide Society. What is wrong with this thing?
Horrendous book. No, I just remember though that was a pretty funny story of like all of us reading it and going like, yeah, so he's gay, right? Like he's clearly super gay for Finney. And they were like, and she was like, no,
Fucking
that's not in there.
psychopath.
You're reading it in. Then the author of the book was like, no, yeah, it's totally gay. Like
Yeah.
very intentional. Uh Whatever. It doesn't matter. It's an awful book.
The author
But the
based himself on Gene. Yeah, sure.
the point being, somebody like reposted this list, which I think is pretty good.
Mm,
And he says the most bog standard high school reading list in the history of the planet. Ha, take that, public schools. Classical education wins again. We're preserving the classic texts that other high schoolers simply don't read anymore, like The Alchemist and The Crucible.
mm,
To which I would respond that, like, okay, you see this whole, they need to read all of these books in their entirety. I'm going to be honest with you, buddy. Most high schools, you do not need to read The Odyssey or Antigone
yep.
or Fahrenheit or Pride and Prejudice or The Divine Comedy. I don't know any high school like makes you read the whole Divine Comedy or Henry David Thoreau. So
Yep.
yeah, actually, which is why Repost is like, this guy really has no idea how bad the high schools are now, does he?
Yeah.
It's bad, worse than you think.
It's yeah. That there yeah, it's just bad. It's worse than you think. Like yeah, sure, like people if you break down in the hood, it's not guaranteed that you're going to be robbed and murdered and stuff like that. My mom is broken down in a quasi hood, and she came out just fine. I came and got her. We had AAA, blah blah blah. So but the thing is that that's not a proof that the hood can be trusted or whatever. That's just a proof that God protects His people from harm. Like I've driven through the hood. Not the East St. Louis hood. I go out of my way to stay out of that one. There's such a thing as tempting God. Um, but and I bought a dash camera for the simple reason is that in one day I was nearly run off the road 3 times by people just speeding. They weren't even going after me personally. They were just recklessly driving like insane people. Down potholed roads, main roads too. Like it was shocking that no accident happened, even not involving me. So it's like we see these things, and then we, like with the whole thing that's happening in Virginia now, and it's like, oh, it's not, it's so bad, and then denial of things like how, and then denial of some of the messages of the, um, oh my goodness, Lord of the Flies, is just kind of strange. I don't get it, but that's okay.
Yeah. Uh, there you go.
Yeah,
All right, I've said my piece on this. I think Lord of the Flies worth talking and thinking about. There you
yeah,
go.
it is. Uh, it's
Anything
like,
else? Sorry, go ahead.
well, it's like considering its value as literature, it's like, yeah, I don't like it, but I have reread it more than I've read other ones. Like I've reread it like twice, 3 times. Uh, you know, I didn't just do that, because of nothing or whatever. You know what I mean? There's great works of classical literature that I would say I even enjoyed that I haven't read twice.
Mm,
So it's like, maybe I did enjoy it in its own way.
anything else you want to discuss? Epstein files were released.
Yeah.
I actually don't think there is that much to say about them because I don't think
No.
anybody really knows what's real in them because most of the really insane stuff that people have been posting online and being like, look, proof that the government elites eat babies is like always with a little asterisk that says, so a schizophrenic told us this and we had to include it in the report.
Right.
Um,
This woman has been referred to many psychiatric, whatever, but she has refused treatment. It's like, yeah, sure, that's a trustworthy testimony.
yeah. The most fun part of the Epstein files was seeing that Trump's main claim to fame. I have seen people like Dr. Phaser go like, "This shows what a bore he is," and I like we didn't already know that. I don't care.
Right.
But like, is that Trump went and the supermodel that he slept with was Melania, and the main thing that he said was, "Holy shit, this chick's fucking hot." Like repeatedly, like, "Where'd you find this girl?" And then he married her,
Right.
which is really funny that Trump's implication in the Epstein files is that I mean, yeah, there are some he has mentioned some of the schizophrenic stuff was like Trump ate babies was like one of them, yeah.
Yeah.
But that was like one of the obviously schizophrenic people. But the main like credible claim to
There's not
fame
enough
of
meat
Trump
on them.
in
Okay.
the Epstein files is
Yes.
that the supermodel he slept with was his wife.
Yes. Which
Which
to
is
me,
really funny, like, imagine going to Epstein Island and the woman you sleep with is your wife.
of age and everything like that.
Yes.
Uh, I found the one where Elon Musk, it, they're like, yeah, we're not doing the parties with Elon anymore because he's like, oh man, I really hope we can join in.
That is extremely funny that, like, Elon's whole thing was, like they were like, "Oh, fucking Elon. No, no, there's no party, Elon." And then other people are like, "Wait, there's a party," and he goes, "Shut up."
Shut up, we don't want it. Just let him. You'll move on if you don't talk.
Yeah, yeah. "No, there's no party, Elon."
there, it's yeah. Like revelations of his compute, like that he was involved in 4chan. That he tried to squash the Gamergate and the Pizzagate stuff. Which we're just never monetizing this channel, so like we might as well talk freely. Uh, it's uh, it's like, yeah, he was an evil man, He acted according to his lusts, and he acted according to the commands of his handlers. And everyone's acting like this is a big revelation, like we didn't already know. Bill Gates is a creep, like I mentioned in the opener. Like, yeah, we know. South Park depicted him as murdering, people in Microsoft for not wanting to participate in the culture war. There's been tons and tons of media and comedy and parody that just show him as an absolute creep and psycho. Like it's even ignoring his start. Like, yeah, sure, it's easy to start Microsoft when you have backing from governmental employees. Uh, like, whatever. It's one of those things where it's like it's not like a nothing burger, but at the same time, it's like nothing here is beyond what we expected. And
You also get things of people going like, "Oh, this came out and yet nothing happened." I go like, "All right, dude. You know what? Go ahead. I'm waiting. What's the something that you're gonna do?"
right,
I'm like, I don't really understand what people mean by this. Like, this is why I always, but I always kind of had a problem with this. I think the right, especially, really needs to change the way they talk about stuff because so much of what they say is just full of shit. This
yeah,
includes the right in all walks of life. You see it with like the traditional Latin mass community too, right? Where they go like,
yeah.
"This is going to be the last straw. It's going to skid." It's like, or what? Like, shut the fuck up. Or what? What are you
You're
gonna do?
gonna
You're gonna schism? No, you're not, because if you were going to, you would have. People have,
like
right? Like,
Pope Leo shows up. What you gonna do? Huh? Flip? Snaps his ear. Tweaks his ear. Huh? What you gonna do? You gonna turn Protestant? Huh? 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 Oh,
well,
that's
it's
right.
like all of
That's
those
right.
options are already there for you, is like
Right.
my point, right? Where you go like, oh,
Yes.
we might see a massive schism. Bro, you could join one of the schisms that are already out there.
They're perfectly nice, wonderful schisms.
Yeah. Like nobody's,
It's not like you have to join the Church of Christ or something. Like, come on. Anglicans are basically Catholic, except with women bishops. Is that what you want? Is that what you want?
and this is what I mean when they go like, oh, like he can't keep getting away with this. And it's like, all right, or what?
Or what?
Right, because it seemed I'm not gonna lie to you, buddy, it looks to me like he definitely can get away with it.
Yep.
And this is the same with, like, Epstein, where they go, people go like, "Oh, the CIA fucking flew planes into," they were, like, responsible for 9/11. We're not doing anything about it. Alright, what do you intend for me to do? How is
Right.
this information supposed to change my day to day at all?
Right. But
Like,
we now
"Oh,
we
Lee
know.
Harvey Oswald didn't kill Kennedy." Okay. I have work tomorrow.
Yes. I like
Like,
how the kids next door did it, or the wise kids did it, where it was like Lyndon B. Johnson sitting in the room with Harvey Oswald going, "Hey bud, how you feeling? You want to turn the safety off just to make sure?" "I've got it. I've got it, Johnson." I And then he looks over, the safety's on, turns off the safety.
that's pretty good.
Like, yeah, like what you gonna do about it? It's like the Don Lemon thing. Like, fundamentally, like, I am so glad he got arrested, and I want the video of him getting arrested because I think he'd cry like a bitch. But at the same time, it's like that doesn't actually change the fact that I have things to do and books to study and other stuff like that. It's like, Anthony has work tomorrow. Okay, he goes to the pasta factory where he makes
Yes,
mozzarella for the pasta because he's Italian. And then
correct.
he goes home and watches episodes of The Sopranos, except muted, so he can get a real Italian accent in them.
Yes.
Uh, Sorry, but like for me, it's like, what am I gonna do? I'm in St. Louis. The actual threat to me isn't some sort of weird government thing. It's when I'm going on a delivery or something like that, and some guy decides that the tip he's going to give me is lead. Like it's and that's a small percentage chance of anything like that happening. But it's like it's a more real problem then all this other stuff. Like, what are we supposed to do? Stop trusting God? Is God unfaithful? Is God on the Epstein files? No, that's ridiculous nonsense. You know, it's not going to turn out how you want it to. It's like a friend was talking about how he goes online, he's talking to atheists, and he discusses something about I can't remember. It was like God being evil. And he gives like, okay, so you realize that this is all a function of the tree of the garden of good and evil, right? Like Eve eating of the apple, or whatever he said. I was sleep deprived. And the atheist goes, I just can't talk to you people. It's like, you know, whatever he says, whatever he wants to say, you know, you don't have to adopt their mindset, their reasoning. You know, the whole like stream mongering, oh, let's see what the Epstein files here today. Did you know that Epstein whacked it to Five Nights at Freddy fuda porn? It's so important, guys. It's so important that you know the exact flavor of 4chan degeneracy that this known degenerate who, if you believe the schizophrenics, sacrifice children. And of course we believe the schizophrenics, don't we, folks? Like, what are you supposed to do with that? Did God suddenly stop being faithful? Like, did he stop like feeding the birds? uh that's what it comes down to for me. Like, sure, some of the funnier stuff, like having Epstein's thing with like Bill Gates and Elon Musk is pretty funny. The revelation that he was actually involved in setting up a lot of the grooming gangs, by setting up their like philosophical ideas and spreading them around. Yeah, sure, that actually, you know what, that has a little bit of teeth to it. But at the same time, it's like I can only repeat this so many times. Did God stop being faithful? Like, did God stop being sovereign? My pastor was preaching Revelation today, and he points out that these demon hordes, 200 million, twice 10,000 times 10,000, were waiting on the command of God to kill a third of mankind. God had to give the authority for them to kill. At the same time, the unfortunate thing is that Epstein was allowed to by God. Not that God causes evil. I'm not saying that, but for the simple thing that, we're stuck with the revelation that, God allowed these evil things to happen. He didn't, raise his hand to smite Epstein down. And quite frankly, my schizophrenic position on this is that Epstein wasn't murdered in his cell, but rather he's enjoying a vacation somewhere else, or that he did murder himself, uh, just because he knew that the game was up and he'd never enjoy um, doing horrible things to underage children again. uh he didn't you don't need a connection to Hillary Clinton to understand evil.
Yeah. I mean, it's just frustrating to me. Like, it happened after Biden stole the election as well, which I absolutely
Yep.
believe he did. I think Biden stole the election. Where people were like, "Oh, if Trump's gonna cross the road," it's like, no, not. You want to know what's gonna happen if we absolutely like? What would you do if Biden came out tomorrow on live television and said, "All right, Trump's been arrested. I control the army. I am in charge now." Right?
Yep.
I'll tell you what I would have done. Nothing.
Nope.
I wouldn't have done a thing. I'm like, and if you're being honest, you probably wouldn't have either. Now, there are probably some of our viewers in certain parts of the country who might have joined some sort of militia.
Yep.
Most people wouldn't have. Uh,
Yep.
let's see. Yeah, so it's just one of the things where I don't like when we make idle threats because it comes off as ridiculous. And also when we try and pretend that clear defeats are victories, like what happened with Jimmy Kimmel,
Yep.
right? Like that was, we lost. We lost categorically, catastrophically, and completely. In fact, we were embarrassed and humiliated, right?
Yep.
Jimmy Kimmel went on air. He lied brazenly, openly to the country. Uh, and instead of there being serious any consequences, really,
Yep.
he was taken off the air for 3 days, went back on, did not apologize, did not retract his comment, and got a bump in ratings.
Yep.
Uh, he was not arrested for spreading false information, as he should have been under FCC regulations.
Yep.
He was not disciplined by Disney. He was not. He did not have any serious consequences occur. All he got was a 3-day break.
Yep.
That to pretend that did anything is a complete joke. Like you see people going like, no, like really, it's a good thing to expose you. Like, shut the fuck up. Nobody watched Jimmy Kimmel anyway. If you did, you're not going to listen suddenly because hey, um, he spoke about he talked about Charlie Kirk, and suddenly you're not going to be a shit lib.
Right.
Like, only shit libs watch Kimmel anyway.
Boomer shit libs.
Yes. Like nothing changed as a result of this except that he got slightly more viewers, and he was able to brag to the world that he could say what he wanted with no consequences when men like Charlie Kirk get shot.
Yep.
So yeah, that's a defeat. That's we can't pretend that we won that. Yeah.
Yep.
And if Don Lemon doesn't go to jail, then that's a defeat. John Lemon needs to go to jail.
Yep. He needs to go to jail. He needed to stay in jail and not get bonded out. He needed to be punished. He needed to be broken underfoot, as I like to say, uh, which is like basically an Assyrian phrase, because it's got to be that much of a savage statement. Um, like Jimmy Kimmel, Biden, all these other guys who perverted our republic, perverted our rules, said things that are hateful to our side because they hate us. They want to see us murdered. They want to see our kids raped and turned into women or men, whatever the opposite thing is, or any number of things. Uh, they want them to suffer. It's like, what are you supposed to do about that? It's evil. These are evil people. They have evil spirits. They go about because they serve their father, the devil. Um, it's the victory is in Christ and has always been in Christ, but at the same time, it's like part of the reason why we voted Trump in. Our vote names are on those voter rolls, by the way, is because we believed that he would not be as evil as the rest of it, and he's not. He's better. He's so much better than anything we could have possibly dreamed of. But at the same time, our enemies still have a power to them. Yeah, sure, they're putting some woke away, but in reality, they're unleashing more and more woke. And it's not the woke isn't being put away if their stormtroopers are still occupying streets all over Minneapolis, um, being funded by the state government itself. Tim Walz may have sold nuclear secrets to China. He needs to be hung and drawn and quartered for it. We need to see that face from the. We need to see whatever dopey grandpa face he'd make while his intestines are being dragged out for being a traitor to the republic. Like that's what it takes. The things that we actually want aren't superversive. Well, they are in a way. Incredible violence is superversive if it's done to evil people, evil creatures, werewolves and vampires and such. Uh, but it's you have to have the stomach for it. Go on a gore site, see some cartel murder. Do you have the stomach for that? Maybe you can do that then. Maybe if you can look at the wickedness of it, you can stomach it being done to somebody who is wicked, who is evil. Someone Flesh Simulator recently shared an image where some of the Sandy Hook stuff was examined for. This stuff might actually cancel the stream. I don't know. where somebody was examining Sandy Hook pictures, and the claim is, I don't know if these are real or not, and I'm not saying they are or not, but the AI examiner said that the pictures from Sandy Hook of the families and stuff were AI, and Flesh Simulator said that he had said that the government has had photorealistic AI generation since 2004. I don't know about that. That doesn't change my life. Alex Jones was sued for that to beyond anything he could ever earn ever, as an example. And quite frankly, that's also a loss in its own way, even though he's not necessarily in the same thing as us, same circles as us. It's
Yeah, I don't trust Flesh Simulator at all, but
I like him. Uh, but it's like if this is true and Sandy Hook is a op, the same as everything else. Like, what does it mean? What are you going to do about it, huh? Well, we just know. It's like what Anthony said. It's like you're still going to go to work tomorrow. You're not going to riot. You're not going to kill your local politician. You're not going to do anything. We're not going to do anything. I think more about me not having a wife than I think about what can be done against governments and stuff like that. Like there's things that actually matter for the normal person. Uh, like, yeah, sure, if there's like civil war, that affects the normal person, but this stuff, things are just going to get worse. Pax Americana is over. And it's been over. Like we're Pax American Empire or whatever you want to call it, and it's not Pax at all. It's a desert called peace. Uh, I don't have anything else because it's just more the same thing. It's like in the end, I'm not going to riot in Minneapolis. I'm not going to join ICE. I've got things I want to do that's very important that I hope is going to help a lot of people when I get it, when I get my master's and all this jazz. But it's still not gonna change anything.
yeah, let's see. Only real thing left to say is we promised Eldritch Fan we would answer his question from way at the beginning of the stream. The plot for my novel is getting too complicated, too many factions of characters doing things. Any advice? Kill people off.
Yep.
That I'm actually not being sarcastic. It kind of sounds like I am. All right. So it depends on what sort of novel that you're doing, right?
Right.
If you're doing an epic fantasy, for example, kill people off is sound advice for this sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, there's a few considerations here, right? Is your project too complicated? There are very complicated books that are very good. Gene Wolfe is, of course, the master of them.
Yep.
It could just be that you are not being clear enough. You're not explaining yourself well enough. So you might just need to get good.
Yep. Well, yeah. And when it comes to like too many plots and stuff like that, a lot of it can be broken down to is it how important is it to the main plot, right? Uh Most of the time, the things that you think are important may not be nearly as important as you think it is. For example, um, a lot of people think that Littlefinger's maneuvers in Game of Thrones isn't very important. Well, even though Game of Thrones is a big mess, that's actually not one of the problems with it. And you probably know the scene I'm talking about already. The thing is to show that the limits of what you can do when you're just influential and not actually powerful in this sort of society. And then you have moments where he goes up to Cersei. I could do this. I'm influential, and she goes, "Oh, okay." Guards throw him off the side of the building, and then he goes, "Wait, wait, wait, wait!" And then she's like, "Oh, change my mind." And it's to show that kind of thing. Like that's the whole climax of Littlefinger's arc. What
Yeah,
happens after that?
it's a great scene, which I have never seen Game of Thrones. I've seen a few clips, but that's one I've seen
Sure.
I think he tells her knowledge is power, and then she goes, "Really?"
Yeah.
And that's when she goes, "Guards, throw him off the cliff." And he goes, "Wait, wait, wait!" And she goes, "I've changed my mind. Leave him here." And then she
Yep.
looks at them and goes, "Knowledge is knowledge. Power is power. Learn the difference."
Yep. That's
And
yeah.
yeah, great scene.
The point is that like you can do stuff like that to characters. You could have like, let's say you have a Dark Lord and a minion, a Saruman like minion. But I can do so much for you, Dark Lord. Uh-huh. Balrogs, throw him into the fire. Whoa, 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 whoa. You know. It's one of those things where if it, like you don't need to show all the evil stuff. And if you do, like there better be a purpose to it. In the same way, you have things like um what's another example? Like Star Wars. If you look at a lot of the Star Wars novels, some of them have both the villain perspective and the hero perspective, or multiple threads going at once. But of all the best books have scenes where threads merge together. So let's say that you have a bunch of heroes fighting for the throne. Well, they wouldn't actually all just be as individualistic as they are in Game of Thrones. Actually, Stannis Baratheon and the North and the North would have allied almost instantly. Like the idea that the North and Stannis Baratheon would do any sort of infighting is a joke. Um, Robb Stark would have teamed up with him, pretty much as soon as he could. The Baratheons are the rightful kings, but at least in the immediate, but like there's a lot of like controversy and drama and stuff like that. But like in Star Wars, what they do is if they have those scenes, right? They might have a complicated story to begin. Lando's doing this, Han's doing that, um, Luke's doing this, and by the end of the book, all of them will be together. All the villains will be pared down into one major threat, or two or three major threats, but in the same area. Excuse me, and they would be taken care of, in a nice little bow. And you won't notice that it's happening. So you might just be, overcomplicating what you don't need to complicate. Like you can settle a lot of these things without having to keep a complicated plot while also having the results of a complicated plot, or the reader thinking that it's a nice deep um, complicated plot. There we go. You have anything else for him?
Just drop a bomb on him.
Yeah, kill them all. Not very superversive of me to say so, but sometimes I just have a taste for murder. Thinking about traitors to the Republic being hung, drawn, and quartered does that to a person. The screams of the damned, cursing God, who they cursed in life and are cursing in death, may not be sweet, but they are uh, richly earned by their wicked lives. Next week, we'll do something more specific. Uh, I'm not sure, though. I'm not sure I'm going to announce anything. But come on next week. We'll have something more constructed for you. Have a good one.